for your listeners that I think is important when I was identifying these projects is I wanted a project that no other junior had ever held before. That was a tall ask, and we had looked at the ability to have a large project. And that led us to what we have now, which is called the Las Coloradas project. We've sampled that entire area. We've got high grade silver anywhere up to 600 grams on surface over the strike length of both those structures. And our theory here, and you've heard this in the past, the best place to find a mine is where there was one. And if you look at Mexico in particular, there are no new mines being discovered. There are old mines that were discovered, a long time ago that companies have gone in and basically upgraded them, had additional discoveries, and grew them. Our vision in the Parral mining district in Chihuahua is to be the preeminent explorer. So that's what we like to do. That's what my management team is good at, and that's exploration.
The most exciting part of this podcast is that you are starting your drill program.
That's the exciting part about any junior company is the drill bit. And the drill bit tells the story. That drill bit's going to tell us. So any new potential shareholders are going to get the advantage of we've done all the work to get us to this state. So the upside is in the drill bit and also in the opportunity that we're going to, as a company, expand our presence in the district.
For disclosure purposes, our site does not make recommendations for purchases or sale of stocks, services, or products. Nothing on our site or this podcast should be construed as an offer or solicitation to buy or sell products or securities. All investing involves risk and possible losses. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please read all disclosures and disclaimers at the end of the show. For disclosure purposes, Kingsmen Resources is a paid-for featured client on the Investor Ideas website. Scott, thanks so much for joining us on the show. For investors and followers that are new to the Kingsmen story, do you want to just give a quick background on how you founded the company?
Just for your listeners, in terms of a little background, this project was put together over, I guess, 27 months ago is when I started the process. So I took over what you'd call a shell company, and I then financed that company with my own personal capital and some close friends of mine. I then went on a project search, and because of my experience in the mining business over the last 28 years, I was very particular about the jurisdiction that I was, prepared to work in. I found myself in Chihuahua, Mexico. And Chihuahua presented a lot of opportunity in the sense that it was post-COVID. A lot of juniors had left the space, and a lot of seniors for that matter. And we were able to identify 11 projects that we felt were of merit. And when I say of merit, we had a checklist. I had a checklist, I guess, and that I follow. And one of the things that, for your listeners, that I think is important when I was identifying these projects is I wanted a project that no other junior had ever held before. That was a tall ask, and over the course of 8 months, we had visited again 11 projects. When I say we had visited them, we had gone to the field, we had sampled those projects, we had looked at the ownership, and we had looked at the ability to have a large project. And that led us to what we have now, which is called the Las Coloradas project. And Las Coloradas was a past producing mine. It produced from 1944 to 1952. It was operated by ASARCO, which is Grupo de Mexico, during that time. And that was a very small project in the sense that the mine itself was only 300 meters in length, and it was approximately 150 meters of depth. It was a high-grade silver mine. And what was interesting about it is The mine itself was one claim, but then it was surrounded by 14 other additional claims. And the reason that Asarco and Grupo de Mexico had left that space is because they were unable to basically get contractual agreements with those other surrounding landholders. So they felt, hey, look, we're not able to negotiate with these people. We're out of here. So they left, and it left that district again with the fragmented ownership stalled for about 26 years. Nobody was able to consolidate this into one big package. And that's something that over the course of the year, we were able to do. We now control an area of approximately 3 miles by 3 miles. As I mentioned to you earlier, that Las Coloradas mine was only 300 meters in length. What we've been able to do over the course of the last year and a half was we've been able to trace the structures of that old mine now for 1.7 and 1.4 kilometers in total. So now we've taken that 300 meters, we've expanded it, we've sampled that entire area. We've got high grade silver anywhere up to 600 grams on surface over the strike length of both those structures. And our theory here, and you've heard this in the past, the best place to find a mine is where there was one. And if you look at Mexico in particular, there are no new mines being discovered. There are old mines that were discovered, a long time ago that companies have gone in and basically upgraded them, had additional discoveries, and grew them.
I think it's really exciting that you're the first and only junior to consolidate and explore in that area. Can you go in a little more in depth into the Chihuahua, how that jurisdiction is changing for maybe investors that weren't participating in AME this year and heard some of the updates of that whole jurisdiction changing?
So Chihuahua has always been a mining friendly state. I can name some of the notable mines in Chihuahua, but for your listeners that are in the junior market, probably the acquisition of First Majestic Silver that purchased the Gatos Silver Mine, which the Gatos Silver Mine is a large high grade silver producer. It was previously operated by another junior company, but it was a $980 million takeover for 70% interest. There is the Santa Barbara mine, which is operated by Grupo de Mexico. So that jurisdiction is very mining friendly. And even though people will talk about the previous government in Mexico, which was AMLO, they had a ban on open pit mining. But again, the political environment changed. They now have a new president in Mexico. She's more open to mining. I can tell you that we know of 5 permits that have been granted since December of last year for mining. And I think we're going to continue to see that. And especially in Chihuahua, because again, they're a very mining friendly state.
Now that we've kind of talked about the landscape of why you founded and started Kingsman, can we talk about some of your latest press releases? First, want to start with that you just raised over $1 million. Do you want to just talk about the proceeds and what you're going to be planning to do with that this year?
Over the last, 2 years, we did our initial financing at 15 cents, which, as I mentioned earlier, myself and my family participated in, along with some people that believed in our vision of what we were going to try to put together. We then did another round at 25 cents Canadian with a 40-cent warrant. And then most recently, to the announcement that you just mentioned, we did another $1.1 million at 72 cents Canadian. What I can tell you about that capital raise was that was because our vision in the Parral mining district in Chihuahua is to be the preeminent explorer. So that's what we like to do. That's what my management team is good at, and that's exploration. So that additional capital is going to allow us to continue our regional program because I know there are other opportunities like Las Coloradas, but it's time. And so that additional capital injection is going to allow us to continue to proceed down that path while we are drilling our Las Coloradas project.
Speaking of drilling, the most exciting part of this podcast is that you are starting your drill program. Can you just update, again, investors that are kind of new to the story of what your drill program is for this year?
Sure. So that's the exciting part about any junior company, is the drill bit, and the drill bit tells the story. And this particular program is the first program that will be done at Las Coloradas. And we are going to focus on the extension of the past producing mine. Then we're gonna focus on the what's below the water table because that's as far as the old miners had gone was to the water table. So our plan is right now is a 14-hole drill program. We have done for your listeners that don't want to go back and look at the website and the press releases. Not only have we mapped the entire project area, we've sampled the entire project area. We've done 3D IP, which gives us a better indication of our drill targets. And that, again, coincided with the sampling that we had done where we had originally picked drill targets. This just reconfirmed our theory because we did get responses below those targets. We've done all the legwork. We've kind of done the boring part that most people would look and go, oh, they're doing that. Oh, when are they going to drill? When are they going to drill? And I think when we first met, Cali, I had said to you, I'd like to come on your program and talk to your listeners, but we have to have a catalyst to do that. And I think drilling is one catalyst, but also the additional capital that I've just recently raised in terms of looking at other opportunities. Those are catalysts because it's going to, like I say, allow me to drill, and it's also going to allow me to potentially bring in a second project to complement what we're already doing and to be that preeminent explorer.
Very excited personally to hear your upcoming drill results when those do come out. I know we're not geologists here, but just a little bit about the typical geology that you've seen at Las Coloradas, and then also maybe just some of your neighbors that are close by, because I feel like those are also of merit to talk about.
The geology, when we talked about, the previous government that was in play and the open pit mining ban and no new leases, I just want to emphasize that our project is an underground project. It's not going to be an open pit if we have the discovery that we think, the potential that we think is there. So I think that's important because when you want to talk about geology, we're an underground, high grade epithermal vein system. Um, that's what we're chasing there. That's the simplistic way to look at the geology. And then if we want to talk about our neighbors, most notably 30 kilometers from us is a company called Gold, and they have the Parral tailings facility that they operate. They currently process the tailings from the old La Preta mine, which is located in Parral. And they're processing that. They process silver, gold, lead, and most recently they've added a zinc circuit. So they would be a natural progression should we have the discovery to basically look at us. They're developing a project in Jalisco, Mexico, right now, which is called the Los Ricos project. But they would be probably the most notable to have a look at us or to potentially acquire us should we have the results that we think we're going to have. And then I previously mentioned Gatos Silver, which is about 70 kilometers from us. That's First Majestic Silver. And I'm talking juniors here, and the reason I'm talking juniors because juniors are the best explorers. They're the ones that, especially when you talk about companies that are in production like Gold and First Majestic, they would be the best suitor for us. But then we've got the Santa Barbara mine, which is Grupo de Mexico. We've got, there's notably, I think, 6 or 7 within that region that could be possible suitors.
One of my favorite things personally, again, for your company is your share structure because it is fantastic. Do you want to, again, just quickly for investors, where you guys are at cash wise and then your share structure and everything?
Sure. So we have a little over $2 million in working capital right now. And as I mentioned in the discussion earlier, when I originally took over the vehicle, I did a financing round at 15 cents. So we all shareholders have a vested interest in the company, meaning that they all wrote checks, including myself and my family. There's been no shares issued for debt. There's been no shares issued on the acquisition, which again, we own 100% of. A scaled payment structure over 7 years to acquire 100% of the project for $2.1 million US. So in total, in the money that we've raised, we now have 28 million shares outstanding. I and my family own about 30% of the company. And then I've got some significant shareholders out of the United States and Mexico that have allowed me again to build out my path forward. We're a tightly structured company, a great group of supportive shareholders.
Can we also just talk about why did you decide when you were looking for projects to go somewhere that juniors had not explored before, and why did you pick silver as your commodity that you wanted to look at?
I'd be remiss if I said silver was the only thing that we were looking for. We were looking for gold as well as silver and copper. And that was and you were part of the pre-COVID, post-COVID era where, people were talking about a commodities bull market. And I think we are in one with gold at 3,400 and, silver flirting at the 33, $34 mark. But one of the things when looking for a project, my previous experience has been in Argentina. And something that I was there for 18 years. I had Mitsubishi as a funding partner in our project there. Something that I didn't want to re-experience was just the travel and the cost in order to get to the project areas. Because I'm a boots on the ground kind of guy. I go to Mexico, every 6 weeks. And I just didn't want the travel. So if to answer your question, I think, in terms of jurisdictions and whatnot, selfishly for me, it was, I wanted to be able to get to a project within a day or a day and a half. I didn't want the travel back and forth because I can go to Mexico, I can spend 4 days there and I can come back. Whereas if I was going to Argentina as an example, I'd want to go for 2 weeks. Otherwise, it would be kind of a waste of a trip. So that's the reason Mexico. I still think there's a lot of opportunity in Mexico, especially on the exploration side. I think it's still wide open. I think you find quality labor there, drilling, drill rigs, all of the essentials are all there. So I didn't want to go reinvent the wheel somewhere, I guess. And it was legwork and persistence. That's really what it boiled down to was, okay, we've identified something. Can we grow it? Can we expand it? It was time. That's what it was.
Well, it feels like the right timing and right place. Can you just talk quickly about the team? You just mentioned a little bit of your history, but do you want to just talk about everyone that's part of the Kingsman story?
Sure. So I've put together a team of highly respected individuals. Kieran Downs, which is VP of Exploration. His background is Cameco. He was VP of Cameco back in the 90s on their gold division. Kieran's been with me and working with me over the course of all my time in Argentina, and now he's hands-on in Mexico. And then in When I did the acquisition, Charlie Garza, who lives in Parral, Mexico, he's a second generation, he comes from a generation mining family, is very familiar with the area, has worked in the area, and lives in the area. So he's extremely important to the organization, as well as recently Mark Pryor, who was part of Gato Silver. He was their VP of exploration there. He joined us in November of last year. So again, a lot of good in-country experience to the company, and that's my team.
That's a good team to have. I
Yeah,
love
nice pedigree.
it. Fantastic. Scott, obviously, we probably all wish we had met you when Kingsman was 15 cents, but
Yes.
for new shareholders that are looking at you now, what would you like to just say to them or people that are potentially looking at Kingsman for the close of the podcast?
I think in closing, we've touched on the 28 million shares outstanding. We've touched on the ownership. We've touched on the opportunity. And I think now you're again the stage the company's at right now is we're going to be drilling for the next 3 months. So if you look back at what we've announced over the course of the last 2 years, and you can see what we've put together, and you think there's opportunity, that drill bit's going to tell us. So any new potential shareholders are going to get the advantage of we've done all the work to get us to this stage. So the boring part's kind of done. So the upside is in the drill bit and also in the opportunity that we're going to, as a company, expand our presence in the district.